This is INBrief with Craig Brooke, Chief Executive Officer of KeyInvest. First of all, Craig, welcome to Noosa and thank you very much for supporting and participating in the Inside Network's Investment Leaders Forum 2026.
Thanks, James, and thanks to everyone so far that's been part of a great conversation.
It's been a real pleasure having you. Craig, obviously the first question, Div 296, one of the great bogeymen of our time. It's through the Parliament now. It's going to take effect later this year. Really, the attention that it's brought to so many areas of investment and taxation that weren't well understood, it's certainly sharpened attention on tax-aware structuring. So what should advisors be thinking about right now in the few months before it takes effect?
Yeah, thanks, James. So there's a number of things, but the first question to really ask is, can superannuation be an asset that is not actively managed into the future? It's become very obvious that at that $3 million plus mark, and certainly for high net worth individuals with high incomes that are going to build up to that through their career, having an active approach to managing and navigating this now is going to be pretty critical. But there's two cohorts that we're seeing a lot of activity for at the moment. The first cohort are those at preservation age, those that have superannuation above that $3 million mark, what they're going to do to navigate that particular issue and make sure that there is flexibility in the structures that are occurring. The second is earlier in careers, high income earners that are paying superannuation well beyond the SGL, the super guarantee thresholds. Starting to work within those thresholds in particular. We're seeing a lot of activity stereotypically that's capping at the $30,000 at the moment and starting to use other tax structures. The common quote that I keep hearing, I'm not going to have anyone tell me when I can retire. I'm going to build up wealth outside of superannuation.
As an investment bond provider, all of this is music to your ears because investment bonds have come back into the conversation so dramatically. Where do they fit into the conversation? There's so many areas, but where do they really fit into the conversation? Sum that up for advisors who are seeking flexibility and efficiency and long-term certainty in their planning.
Yeah, thanks, James. So for starters, and I've been around finance for 30 years now, mainly in banks, and these things that were called insurance bonds right back at that particular point in time, there was 100 providers. Now there's 5 left, and there's 5 that are active. And if you believe what Div 296 is going to do, the sheer rotation out of superannuation into other tax structures means that investment bonds become relevant again. It won't all go into investment bonds, but there's certainly some significance to it. So a number of things, and the 3 things that keep popping up into our minds at the moment as we're talking to advisors and we're talking to clients. The first and foremost is making sure that you understand and you're coming up with an active strategy to bring it back into the conversation. As I mentioned, it hasn't been in the conversation for 30 years as well, and is back in here at the moment. Second, how are you bringing into the conversation planning from an estate point of view and making sure that we're all remembering the use of the estate planning features that an investment bond affords, so that you can be continuing to make sure that there's active management for money, wealth as it's moving through families. We talk about the intergenerational wealth transfer, but what really is it? In a number of years from now, there'll be just over 2 million Australians that are aged 80 years or over, and that particular cohort are needing to and starting to think about, how am I going to be transferring this through the family? And so a combination of a lot of those things at the moment mean investment bonds are one of several different structures that can be considered. And I'd certainly encourage as many conversations, get providers out as much as you possibly can. We've been building technology for the last 18 months just to make the experience a whole lot easier, and we've just released that. The investment bond menu, they've all been pretty stale, I think, for a long time. We've got 52 new funds. We've been doing a heap of work with Atchison over the last 12 months, and we're about to refresh that menu in particular, and really looking forward to releasing that, because advisors across Australia have been contributing to the views on what should sit on an investment bond menu.
Within that work that KeyInvest has done on its menus, you've done a ton of work on private credit. Obviously, that's in the headlines a lot at the moment, not all of it positive. But from your perspective as someone who's really looked in depth at the market, how should advisors frame the opportunity in private credit without understating the risks?
Yeah, thank you. So, private credit, interestingly, where it belongs in the conversation is it's not about private credit versus another asset class, but does it sit within the risk profile? And if the investor is seeking income, that is sometimes what proportion needs to be considered as opposed to a whole portfolio going into it, which we'd certainly never recommend. Why did we start doing the work and the research? Our members, our investors at the moment, it's just under 50,000. They're aged 50 to 90. And that particular cohort have worked their whole lives, superannuation their whole lives. And really, at the heart of it, they're self-funded retirees. And some of them are self-directed, some are advised, and they've been using private credit. When they told us that, we were looking for more simple and easy ways and safer ways to access more from a best of breed point of view. So we undertook a whole heap of research, go back to 2022. Took us 2 years, but we worked through every provider in Australia. And that 308, when we looked at a particular risk profile as an APRA-regulated organisation, risk and governance is quite important, quite critical to us. We're regulated appropriately in that regard. And so we've been working through all providers and what I would consider the lowest risk profile. So first mortgages in place, have rights, personal guarantees, corporate guarantees, and a range of other things in terms of duration, manager diversification, geography, all the diversifiers you can think about to access it. What we didn't expect is wealth managers, advisors said, can you actually release that to us in some different fund structures after we did all the research? So we're about to drop that in across Australia at the moment. So if it's something that fits in there, then KeyInvest or KeyInvest Managed Investments, a subsidiary of ours, will have a solution that can be considered.
Craig, as you said before, you've had a long career primarily in banking and now at KeyInvest. But if you look across the financial services and advice industry from your perspective, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given from people you really respected in the industry?
Yeah, funnily enough, this was a conversation over dinner last night, and perhaps the advice I have is really, really boring, but financial services in Australia is actually smaller than people realise. So be congruent, do what you say you're going to do, because you'll get found out eventually. And so having high integrity, continuing to deliver against the things you say you're going to do is really important. And no matter where you're at in your career, do that. Because people know, people remember, they remember how you made them feel.
Craig Brooke, CEO of KeyInvest, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks so much, James.